What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 90 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. Matt, how's it going?
It's going good, man. You know, jumping out of the World Championships over there for about 10 days and jumping back in. You know, we're reaching the heart of the busy season. Wrestling season's really, actually, wrestling season's here, right? I mean, for the most people, it's preseason, but all the preseason tournaments are starting. So yeah, we're in full swing. You know, kind of every year we kind of want to give coaches out there a heads up. You know, we've got obviously a ton of people, you know, placing orders with us right now. We try and turn those around as quickly as possible. But as we reach the month of October through the heart of wrestling season, our orders tend to take a slightly longer. We try and overpromise.
You guys are busy. You're busy.
Yeah, we try and underpromise, overdeliver. I mean, we try and fit it in a 4-week window. I guess the only thing I'm saying, if you're interested in buying gear, now's the time to do it. Especially if you want it before the start of wrestling season, you have a little bit of a more window.
They don't got much of a window. They got to get going. Yeah, Matt, we had our order in 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now. So we were ahead of the curve, I think.
Yeah, so I think the customers that have been really loyal to us in previous years, I think if they haven't ordered with us in the last couple of years, the way we've grown and the amount of orders that we're trying to process this time of year, you know, the more lead time you can give yourself, the better. And you guys did a perfect job. You guys got that in around August, didn't you?
No, it was earlier in September, but we know October, November are the busy months. So you know what? We actually try to avoid those. We do a couple of different gear orders, but we do one in September and then we wait again until January to do the follow-up one because we know I know how busy you guys are in October, November, December. So I want to avoid that if I can. So high school coaches, get it going. Stop stalling.
Cool. So we are going to, you know, as we transitioned out of freestyle season, we're right into college season, right?
What? I want to bring up something first. I just sent you the sheet, Matt. My guys, I talked about this for about 60 seconds yesterday. My guys are on fire. They did all of the work already. I have it back. And Matt, I told you, and you can kind of scroll through this. It's almost eerie how similar some of this stuff is. So we've done now the Worlds last year, U.S. Open this year, Worlds 2019. So that's 3 different tournaments. The exact same amount of matches, except this year, one of my guys did, I think, 8 extra matches at one weight class because they didn't realize they were doing the wrong round. So there's a few more matches. But like, for example, set up for shot for control tie. Of the 3 tournaments, it's 68, 68, 72. Scoring for the crackdown position, 22, 26, 24. Duck under, 16, 12, 14. Firemen's, 15, 12, 16. Like, Matt, it's blowing my mind how close some of these numbers are together. It really is like, it's making me almost crazy because it's like, dude, there's 100, I think we calculate 170 or 180 matches. Like, how is it these numbers are within like 2 points of each other for every tournament? It's bizarro.
I mean, it's crazy. And I'm really looking forward to really digging in. I'm just looking over the numbers real quick for the first time. You just sent them to me, but I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I think that's what we were hoping. You know, once we get some cross comparative analysis, you know, and get years worth of data, you know, it kind of gives you a pretty good recipe. Like last year, it gave you a good idea, but it kind of just reinforces maybe some of the focus areas that you were really concentrating on. It gives you more depth and just more ammunition to sell to your guys. Like, no, this wasn't an outlier. It just didn't happen last year, almost to a T, almost to a percentage point. You know, this is the control tie that's going to work for you. You know, at the highest level.
How about slide buys? 36 points both years at Worlds.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So when you look at if you're looking up top, Matt, 2018 Worlds is 2019 Worlds. You know, control tie, mid 100s. Shots this year was 547 to 477, so relatively similar. A few more points being scored, but you know, you add in 8 matches, maybe that accounts for it. The one category that had a large change, which, you know, I was actually surprised how low it was last year, is for a headlock mantis. You know, that control position. Last year it only scored 56 points. This year is 126, so way up. I was
actually going to jump in there. Like when we were offline, I wanted to say, like, front headlocks were of the one areas that I could probably jump from last year to this year. The front headlock area and short offense area is one of the areas that I definitely, when I was watching the event, you could tell like they were scoring at a bigger uptick than a year ago. But outside of that, I mean, it is pretty eerie. Like some of these main stats.
Yes.
Like, I'd like to get into
penalty, shot clock, push out. Look at those three, Matt. They're like all three of them are so close to what they were at last year at Worlds. It's like holy crap.
And I'm going to have to dust off my old science books and dig into like scientific analysis. Like how much of a discrepancy is there? You know, what percentage of a difference, what variation in the subset warrants, you know, a change is being made, or what's within the acceptable range that nothing has changed that much. I'm going to have to brush up on my my science skills a little bit better.
So the one category that was interesting, and so listen, I got to assume they scored the same because I've had the same kids doing all three tournaments. So I got to assume that, you know, it's obviously two people watching the film could interpret things different ways, but I've had the same kids through all three tournaments. They do a great job. They're all coached by me, so we kind of think about things similar ways. And when you look at defense, you know, some of these categories are close. Like dump is actually 44 points both years. Step over is a little more this year. Reshot is a little less, a little down. Down block go behind is way down, and scramble is way up. So what that tells me, the differentiation there, what that tells me is that people were having more success actually getting to the legs this year, right? Because if you score a down block go behind, it means they didn't really touch your legs, right? You down block them before they got there. If you score a scramble, it means they got to your legs. So whatever it was, people were having more success getting to legs, and they're getting scored on more frequently. And so the down blocks go down. It's almost the same point, right? The down blocks go down by 35 points, and the scrambles go up by 40 points. So it's funny how that balanced out.
It's really interesting. And I wonder, because one of the other, it's not a new technique, but it seemed like a more relevant technique at this year's championships. And the match that really comes to my mind would be Rashidov and Aliyev, where they were going, it was, both guys had their moments, but both guys were going for a reattack. And the way they were basically doing a shoulder in, basically a stand-up shoulder in, you know, to avoid,
I know exactly
to kind of create a scramble instead of, because both guys were going for a reattack in those positions, and instead of going down block, head block, they were going scramble defense, like shoulder in, basically, you know, in folk style, stand up, shoulder in as their scramble, as their defensive technique, which I thought was really, really interesting. I would be interested to see how you would incorporate that into your system at AWA.
We actually, I think we do. I mean, obviously not nearly as proficiently as those two, but we use some of those type of tactics. For me, that goes all the way back to watching a guy named Mavlet Batirov, who was a multiple-time world champion. He used a few of those tactics in his own. And I always try to study guys there because I was always really terrible at the basic. I'm slow, right? So people are going to get to my legs. That's just going to happen. So I was always, you know, studying those guys who did stuff after people got to their legs, so I could think of, okay, how can I work this into my style? And that, you know, that's the way I thought about it. So but it's fascinating how those two balance each other, because you're thinking, okay, if down block go behind points are way up there, then you're going to see scramble points go lower, right? And if down block go behinds are low, you're going to see scramble points be higher, because you can't have one without the other. You can't have both.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm interested to have our people, you know, build out the graphs, build out the charts, and actually break this down. Hopefully by next week. Hopefully we can jump into this.
Oh, that fast! Wow, that would be.
Or it could be a couple weeks.
Well, if you guys get the graphs done that fast, that would be outstanding. Hold on, I have one mathematical calculation to do here, Matt. I want to talk about one more thing. I want to get the exact numbers because it looks to me eerily similar. I do want to confirm though in my own head. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm doing one more. I know this is probably bad radio. You got to tell the viewers something while I'm doing this math over here. Okay, so look, the ratio of what I just did was the ratio of offensive shot points to defensive shot points, right? That's what we have for defense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all between 1.75 and 1.9. So that means offense obviously is greater than defense, right? But I think that's pretty fascinating too, that the ratio is so similar every single time. And when I looked at them, I figured they were going to be similar. Because obviously if, say, defense went way up, what I think you would see is all scoring go down because shooting wouldn't be as worth it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean it's cause and effect, right? I mean if it's going down, it would be going.
If you're
down.
scoring,
So
if you're scoring 2 points defensively for every 1 point offense, people are just gonna stop shooting. So right now, what we see is it's 1.75 to 1.9. So you're almost 2 points of offense for every 1 point of defense. So obviously, shooting is it's beneficial to be a good attacker.
Yeah, and that would be one interesting stat too. You were yesterday. We were talking about the tweaks we would possibly make in the rules. You know, the shot clock thing. It doesn't really.
Let's get rid of that.
In most cases, it doesn't really incentivize the guys. It's like, look, I'm not going to put myself at risk just for a point. I'll give up a point knowing a takedown makes that up and then some. So I think by and large, observing the World Championships, most people just took the penalty point. I mean, if the score was there, if the score is there, they took it. But by and large, they're like, no, I'm not going to. I've got 30 seconds here in a 6-minute window. Like, I'm not going to put myself at jeopardy to not only give up one, but possibly greater than one. By just exposing myself just because I'm on the shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, say, there's roughly 850 shot or defensive shot points. And only 89 on, that's like a tenth, right? So to your point, people aren't, they're not super motivated by that shot clock point. And I don't think that it makes a difference in a huge amount of the matches. Obviously, there's a couple it makes a difference in, but when you're looking at 1/10 of the points, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Wisconsin just got another pickup since we talked last.
I mean, they got to be closing the doors at this point, right?
I can't assume they have very much money left. I mean, they got one of my guys, Aiden Medora, 2-time state champ, Fargo finalist. They got Braxton Amos. Well, the one kid, Copus, he's next year.
Gotcha.
I think Hamidi might be next year also. Zargo's this year. So, but they just got, 3 commits in the last 3 or 4 days, and then Braxton Amos a couple weeks back. Yeah, they're feeling real good.
Yeah, I think it's early on in the recruiting game, and not that early. I mean, we're about 6 weeks out from signing date, so we're right in the heart of recruiting season. But
yes,
Wisconsin's got to be firmly established in the top 3, if not number 1 right now, as far as current commits.
Ooh, I'd have to look at everyone else before I commented on that. That's a tough one. What if Flo has something like that up? Like
they've got to be up there. Yeah.
Well, Copus and Hamidi are. So I did confirm they're next year. So they're class of, what is it, 2021. Okay, I got a 2020 commit list. Okay, this is teams with. So this is, long as this article written. This is September 2. So we're a few weeks. We're almost a month old right now. Oklahoma State had. Oh my gosh, they got Dustin Plott, Master Giovanni, Jacasson Burks, Luke Serber, and Connor Doucette. Cornell had Josh Saunders, Greg Demacahalis, Cole Handelvik, Ethan Hatcher, Dylan Cedeno, Greg Gage, and McClanahan. These are all top 200 guys in the whole class. Virginia Tech had a huge one. They got Sammy Hillegas, Clayton Ulray, Eddie Ventresca, Hunter Katka, Sam Fisher. That's a good class right there.
That's really good.
And then NC State's got Ryan Jack, Ed Scott, Kovacs, Kai Belly, Anthony Noto, Donald Cates. That's a really good class also. So, yeah, there's a lot of good ones in there. Okay,
it's interesting. Like, of those schools that you haven't mentioned, a lot of the big, meaning Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa. You didn't really mention many of those guys yet, and that varies from year to year. You never know what your needs are. You don't know you don't know how much money you have. And, I'm sure that's one of the biggest things with Bono in his first 2 years is really adjusting his books financially. Like, what he has available, what he could get, what he could free up, because obviously he's doing a great job
for them, obviously, is, they had to figure out how difficult it was to get kids into school. Like, you have good grades to get into Wisconsin. You can't just get just anybody into Wisconsin. Okay, let's see. Iowa's got a decent class.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was just going to go off on a tangent.
All good. What's your tangent? I want to hear it.
No, I think that's just the general impression. Just my experience at Penn State and recruiting there. It was just a natural assumption, like, oh, you're a state school, I can get in, right? I'm like, no, these Big Ten schools, these
Penn State's got good academics.
Phenomenal. We don't. This is no joke. In all the years that I recruited at Penn State, I don't believe one guy that we recruited and offered money to got in on his own. We all have. Had to get,
What?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, I'm serious.
Wow, that's wild.
And I think that's the case across the board, especially within the Big Ten. These are all elite academic research institutions. They're all land grant institutions, and so they're all top 50 institutions in the country. So just because it's a state school doesn't mean like it's open doors for anybody to get in. So yeah, I mean, that navigating, the academic landscape between South Dakota and Wisconsin, I'm sure is dramatically different for Bono and his staff.
Yeah, way different. Okay, so Iowa's got Cullen Shriver, Jesse Ybarra, Colby Shriver, Pat Kennedy, who's a big one, Gabe Christensen. I think the Shriver and Ybarra pickups are interesting because they're both 25-33s, and obviously Iowa's very deep at 25-33 right now, 41 even. So it'd be interesting to see if they ever see the light of day. Let me get Michigan's got no one because they almost have no money left. Missouri's got a decent class because they got Keegan O'Toole, one of my guys. Rocky Elam, I think, is number 1 or 2 at his weight. Colton Hawks is a very highly ranked wrestler, so that's a decent class. I'm getting to Ohio State, I promise, at some point. We're alphabetical here. Ohio State only has one guy committed right now in this class, and he's a 97-pounder named Santos Cantu from Oregon.
Okay.
That's it. Huh. That's wild, huh?
Well, I know they had a big class last year, right?
Huge class, yeah.
And I think even the year before, and that's what, a lot of time, we could actually get into recruiting sometime and just really breaking down everything that goes into it, because it's a pretty fascinating discussion. I always enjoyed, learning how to manage the books, projecting 5 years out, anticipating where your money's going to be 5 years out, 4 years out, 3 years out. Obviously, there's variables that change those equations a little bit, but I always found it fascinating because that's what you have to do. It's not getting the best guys now, but balancing your roster to the point and projecting out needs. So you're essentially kind of like a GM of a professional team. You know what your needs are, know what your skills are, what your current talent is, and how you balance that, and how you anticipate and forecast and start how that, changes your approach to recruiting, where you're going to recruit, how you're going to recruit. So I think that's all. Well, I think, stuff.
Matt, I mean, one of the things actually Flo was talking about this yesterday, and I don't think they said these exact words, so I'm going to say them because I think it is people don't necessarily want to hear this, but the athletes essentially are treated as a commodity, and they were talking about Ohio State and a few other schools who, man, they ain't redshirt anymore. You're the best guy. You're going to get out there and you're going to wrestle, period. And that's interesting because then obviously you get kids on and off the books in 4 years, right? So if you do 10, I said 9.9, right? The scholarship limit, 9.9 divided by 4 or 9.9 divided by 5. Obviously, if you keep kids only 4 years, you have a lot greater, another half a scholarship per year to spend. And I think that's an interesting topic because I know how much I benefited from my redshirt year, where if Missouri, I probably was Missouri's best guy when I was redshirting. But, I don't know. I might have All-American that year. I don't think I would have been in the national finals, though.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion in seeing the evolution between when did you come out? 04, 05?
I came out, no. I graduated high school 02.
02. 02.
Yeah.
So
yep.
we're talking about almost we're approaching 20 years, right? And the evolution of and the opportunities for kids to develop. I think primarily like in years past, like, as we were going through, we were probably grossly deficient in some area, whether it's from a technical standpoint or a physical standpoint. Whereas nowadays, I think the technical deficiency is not there, or the gross deficiency.
You mean from the high school? You mean from the high school kids?
From the high school kids. So I think
yes,
they are more prepared. There's more opportunities, more levels, more opportunities for high level training. There's dedicated academies like AWA where you're getting the best guys in the state of New York, working with some of the best wrestling or Wisconsin in the best with the best wrestling minds in the entire country. And you have that, that dedicated teaching from the time you're in elementary school through high school. Like, really, if they go to Wisconsin, how much more do they need to learn by the time they get there? Obviously, there's adjustments and tweaks that you have to make. But from a technical standpoint, these guys are pretty much good to go. So if they're physically mature enough, why not put them out there? I mean, that's the only part of the equation is like throwing them out there and letting them grow and adapt in competition.
Yeah, so I think you're right on. I think there's obviously way more opportunities to compete and train at a young age. That is making, and we've talked about this. Obviously our world team is younger than it's ever been. We're having more success at the cadet and junior level than we've ever had before. So I think you're dead on in that. And then I think for certain kids like me who I physically matured so much when I was a freshman in college, that redshirt year that I had. And the other big argument that people make is like, hey, staying healthy for 5 years of college is really hard. It's really hard. And so if the kid is healthy, put him out there, let him wrestle, because you don't know what's going to happen the next year or the next year or the next year.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the common mistakes that people think, and you see it every year in wrestling discussions, that, a kid gets hurt while he's in red shirt, and people will automatically assume, well, he can get a medical red shirt. And that's not the case at all.
Yes.
The only way you can get a medical red shirt is getting hurt in competition. So,
correct.
Like you said, there's a more likelihood that you're going to sustain a serious injury in college than not. Correct? I would say.
Ooh, I don't know. That'd be interesting to do stats on that, wouldn't it?
It kind of would.
What do we do? What are we saying? Serious, like a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out?
I would say anything that would affect the season. Anything 2 months or longer, I think that's when the coaches would probably, if you're talking about an 8-week window, you're like, okay, should we pull? Should we sit him for the rest of the year? Do we have enough window to get him not only just recuperated, but back up to his level of training and match toughness that he needs to compete at the high level? So if you think that there's a likelihood, I mean, if you're the best guy, you should go. And that's actually part of accepting a scholarship, right? Like, they're not just handing, there's an obligation to accepting a scholarship. And part of that is the coaches dictate, the program dictates who's going to wrestle. And if you're on a substantial amount of money, and you're considerably better than anybody in your weight class, you have to go with that guy at this point in time.
So this is why I find it fascinating, because obviously I'm not a college coach, so I'm not in their shoes. And obviously I realize they have more than a responsibility to just their athletes. They have a responsibility to their athletic department, their boosters, their fans, the rest of the team who will do better if the other guy's in there. I think it's a very nuanced and balanced discussion between doing that and how much better is a kid going to be in a year. I mean, I think that like another one who I think about, Matt, would be Zane Rutherford. If you so Zane wrestled, took 5th, and Logan was a senior that year, I believe, and then you redshirt, and then he won. Man, if Zane redshirts that first year, could he be a 4-timer? I mean, could he be one of the? He didn't lose his last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
No,
he didn't
correct.
lose. So are we talking about Zane is an undefeated 4-time NCAA champion? I mean, he was very good, but is he that much better? And we can't say that, but I think there's a possibility of that.
No, there's definitely a possibility, and I think that's the constant struggle of the college coach. Like we've been talking about Bono. Like Bono was brought in to win right away, or as quickly as he possibly can.
As quickly as he can. Yes.
Yeah, and for all those people like, oh, give him a leash, let him, build the program up. Those same people that are going to say, give him a leash in year 2, if they're not in the top 20, top 15, they're like, what the heck is going on with Wisconsin? Why haven't they turned it around? Right. So, I mean, there is a balancing act between doing what's right for the individual, but overall, the responsibility of the coach and the coaching staff is what's in the best interest of the program. And, sometimes, it's at, I wouldn't say the detriment, because I don't think any college coach just randomly pulls a kid out of redshirt that's just going to get thrown in the deep end, that can't compete, that he's putting up his back against the wall. If he's pulling the kid out of redshirt, it may not be the ideal or perfect scenario, but, that's life, that's wrestling, that's sports. I mean, you got to put the 10 best guys out there. And all 10 guys matter, right? So
yes, yeah. But here, no. I'm gonna argue with you on that one.
Okay.
All 10 guys matter, and this is where, man, there's just so many angles I feel like we can attack it from, because in say those dual scenarios, Matt. Yeah, right. Especially say someone gets hurt, and you're going to give up 6 points, and you got a good red shirt, and man, he can go out there and get some wins. That's a 9-point swing in a duel. I mean, do you make duels come down to 9 points? I mean, that's a huge swing. And so in duels, they matter, right? But then again, I go back to the Missouri team. There was a Missouri team at, I want to say 2011, who had all 10 guys qualify. All 10 guys won a match. No one All-American. So everyone was between 12 and 24, or 9 and 24, And they took like 26 in the country. And so those guys who win 1, 2, 3 matches but don't All-American at NCAAs, they don't score that many points for the team. And then some people say, well, all that matters is March. All that matters is March. And so, if you have one of those kids and he's not going to All-American, like, who's a great example? Malik Heinzelman. Great example. He came in, did he make a difference in some duels? Yep. Was he better than what they had? Yep. But did he score very many points in the NCAA tournament? And the answer is no. And I think there's a lot of kids on that level. And so it's like, well, so you can't say all that matters in March and then say, but we have to pull this guy when they're not probably going to score that many points in March.
And I think that's one of those things that these are the conversations that go on behind closed doors with the coach and the AD. I think you've got to really firmly establish what your priorities are in the season, right?
Well, the ADs definitely don't care. They don't care. Get their butts out there. They don't care.
They don't care. But I think that's something you establish. Like, look, really, my long-term focus. How are you going to measure me, right? The bottom line is, you got to establish with your AD, how are you going to measure me? Are you going to measure me in the postseason? Are you going to measure me in the regular season? Are you going to measure me by my conference finish? So it is variable. I think we think of it.
Because it could make a big difference in the conference and not matter at NCAAs.
Right.
Huge.
Because honestly, like where I was from, the last couple of years of my coaching career, I was at a mid-major institution. But I was also in the EIWA, which is, not only one of the elite athletic conferences, it's the elite academic conference. So as I was, balancing that dual thing of like being a premier public institution wrestling against the premier private institution. So, my administration was actually more excited about how I was competing against these elite academic institutions, because that was the academic push that they were platforming for the public to elevate the visibility of the university, and not necessarily against the best athletic conferences in the country. So, it's a nuanced conversation. It's not just as simple as.
Okay. I got another question for you then, Matt. I feel like from what you've been saying, you're going to say, oh, yeah, on this one. They brought this up on Flow yesterday, and I think I would say definitely in favor of it. Football has a resolution where I think they said it was 3 or 4 games where a guy could play in 3 or 4 games and still redshirt. So they could start the season, do 3 games or whatever, and say, nah, I'm going to redshirt. And they brought up like one guy where he was a starting quarterback, and then he got benched, and he said, okay, I'm done. I'm a redshirt, and then he transferred the next year.
Actually, that quarterback, you know where he's at?
You know who we're talking about? I don't know. No, I have no idea. I don't follow football.
He's at Missouri now.
Is he starting?
He's starting. He was the starter at Clemson, started the national championship game. They had this hammer freshman come in, take the spot up from him after the 3rd game, and he still had his red shirt available for him, even though he was in his 4th year. Redshirted.
Really?
Transferred to Missouri, and now he's, a 5th-year senior at Missouri competing. Yeah. But he played in the first 3 games for Clemson last year.
Damn, that's crazy. That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
So would you be in favor of that for wrestling? Because I think it's fantastic, especially with all these injuries. Make it a limited. And, I wouldn't even care, Matt, if they said, only dual meets. If you're a redshirt, you're limited to 2 or 3 dual meets, and take tournaments out of the equation, because obviously we know redshirts get plenty of matches at open tournaments, or they have the ability to get plenty of matches at open tournaments. So I think you take all tournaments off the board, invitational type tournaments, say Las Vegas, Cliff Keen, or Midlands. You take those off the board and you say, okay, if you're a red shirt, you are allowed to do 2 duels, 3 duels. I don't know, a low number, right? Go.
So you're saying this would be slightly altered than the format in football. I think for football, you have to, it's the first 4 games of the season. You're saying
it's only the beginning?
It's only the beginning.
Oh.
Only the first 4. But you're saying, I kind of like your thought process here, and I can expound on that. If available throughout the entire year, you can insert anybody, any time of the year into a dual meet only, 2 to 3 or 4 times a year. I think that would be fantastic, because we've seen that push, about prioritizing and making dual meets more important. Well, how many of those matches, if you look back a year ago, where we were really excited about some of these top ranked teams, and then midweek a guy gets injured or he gets pulled, and pretty much determines the outcome of the dual meet before it even starts, as opposed to I've got this All-American or national champ that's dinged up, but I've got the number 1 in recruit. I could throw him in there. Like, look at the amount of excitement that would actually generate to increase interest in dual meets. I think it would be amazing. Yeah.
And there would be, obviously, there'd be no, not, I won't say no forfeits. The amount of forfeits would be greatly reduced, especially because if you're not going to count the match, say, Matt, you got a 133 pounder, then in your 149 pounder gets hurt. The 133 is redshirting, right? He's a little heavy. You say, listen, man, just get out there, don't get pinned. Go out there and give it a good go. Yeah. And that's all we expect out of you. And he goes and fills in the spot. I think it would take care of a whole bunch of issues. And I think it would be great. And I think that'd be fantastic if NCAA was able to do that.
Yeah, because I think the other you brought up the point is coaches get crucified for forfeiting weight classes, but they don't. Most of these people don't understand that it's really difficult to maintain a full roster size, and so some of these, to your point, I'm not.
Yeah, to that. Talk about roster caps. I don't know if everyone knows that colleges have those.
Yeah, there's so many programs. The one that comes to my mind is Northwestern. They're capped at Northwestern. A great tournament team, right? A great tournament team. Yep. But if we get Matthew back on the show here, he's like, hey, when it comes down to a dual meet, if you had a guy in red shirt, knowing that it's difficult to get this guy in, number 1, and keep him healthy and keep him on the roster, would you just throw him out there for a dual meet? And he would say no. Why? Because I've got to protect my roster. I've only got 22 guys out here. I can only get 4 or 5 guys in a year to my program. So I have to take it on the chin. I have to forfeit the weight because I can't afford to pull this guy out of red shirt. Now, introduce this scenario. It's like, oh, great. Like now all of a sudden I'm not catching grief from the same administrator. This is the messed up thing about it, Ben. The same administrator that is putting a roster cap on the program is also giving the coach crap because he's not putting a guy out there to wrestle, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, you're the one that's handcuffing me here. But if we had, a rule in place that gave greater flexibility, especially for those roster capped programs, it wouldn't give that perceived black eye. I'm like, oh, this guy can't even put out a full roster. It's like, well, I could. I just got a roster cap that I can't think about this year. I also have to think 3-4 years in advance and how this is going to affect me long term. So I think that this would be an absolutely fantastic solution to this.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Matt. We're clearly not going to talk about heavyweight 97 and 84. We're well into the show. We'll just save that for next week. The last thing I want to discuss then on this show, and this is going to be right up the alley of what we have been discussing, athletes' rights. California passed into law yesterday a bill that allows college athletes to hire agents and make money from endorsements. So this is not saying the college will be paying the student athletes. This is saying the student athletes are allowed to make money from their endorsements. Furthermore, it does not take effect until 2023, which is, well, that's 4 years off still. So that's a ways. Are you in favor? Not in favor? Because I'm strongly in favor. So maybe we'll disagree. Maybe we'll agree. I don't know where you're at on this one.
I mean, there's parts I agree with, parts that I don't agree at. I read a couple articles. I skimmed over them yesterday, so I'm not fully versed in this the legislation out in California. Now, you're saying the institution itself would not pay for the name and likeness of the athlete.
So if you remember, I read that's the case.
Okay, so say you were on the football team at Missouri and you had the 33 Askren football jersey and it sold this. The university itself wouldn't compensate you, but you would be allowed to make money off your name and likeness outside of the university or outside of the institution?
I would assume that the school would have rights to sell. I mean, listen, it doesn't say this. I would assume the school would have rights to sell the jersey with your number without your name on it, right? That's what I would guess, because the university logo and colors, that is their property as well. It's not exclusive to you, probably, unless they put your actual name on the jersey, right? There have been other people who've worn number 33. And furthermore, I would venture to guess if you're able to sell, you could sell the right. I could sell the exclusive right to sell my shirts to, well, RUDIS sells my shirts, but you guys don't have the exclusive right? Because the UFC has rights to sell my shirts also. But say I could sell the right to exclusively sell my jersey back to the university, right? Yeah, give me $100,000. I won't sell my jersey anywhere else. You guys have full rights to sell it. Boom, right? You could probably do that. But no, there will be no direct payments from university to athlete.
Okay. I mean, with that format, I don't have as much a problem. Like when you open up the cupboard and just talk about just straight payment to college athletes. Now, I have a completely different feeling about that and the obligation from the educational institution to directly pay these athletes as opposed to them being compensated for their name and likeness. I think that's a different scenario that I would be more favorably inclined to, but I'm not in favor. And this, I mean, Ben, we could actually have a pretty good conversation just about this topic about paying athletes. And I don't think that they should be paid in addition, above and beyond their scholarship. Because I do believe in the value of education.
I think the obvious one is that they should be able to, or this is the obvious one to me. I should be able to go and earn money off my rights and likeness. You know, I want to go sell a T-shirt with my name on it. I should be able to do that. Under the NCAA currently, you're not allowed to do that. That's freaking insane to me. And it really is. It's essentially the biggest part. The biggest issue I have with it. And I actually did a Instagram live a couple weeks back ago about this. The biggest issue I have with it is the fact that essentially in basketball and football, which are the two big moneymakers, the NCAA has a monopoly because you cannot go directly to the NBA or the NFL. You can't go. And some people say, oh, well, they can go to Europe. Like, shut up, dude. No one wants to go to Europe. Like, they can't go to the NBA or the NFL. It's strictly prohibited. And I'm sure that there's some kind of wink, wink, nod, nod type of deal between the NCAA and those organizations. And so you're taking this 18 or 19-year-old who is valuable, who has, he's essentially a commodity who could make money for himself. And you're saying, no, you cannot do that. It is illegal to do such. That's what I have the biggest issue with.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the NCAA is a form of a monopoly. I wouldn't just call it a flat out monopoly, but they are with the rules to enter into the professional ranks from football and basketball. There is some level of restraint of trade on these athletes.
Yeah.
If they have the ability. So yeah, I mean, you and I both know. I mean, we've been in it. I think, the NCAA is one of the more corrupt institutions out there.
Not good people.
Yeah, I think that could be a week-long episode every single day if you really want to peel back the layers of that. But seriously. Yeah, I mean, they're essentially denying these kids the opportunity to earn a wage, and essentially they're controlling the wage that they can earn when they go through these academic institutions, right?
Yeah, because I believe football is 2 years or 3 years till you can go to the NFL?
Football's 2.
2? And basketball's just 1.
Basketball's 1. Baseball, I believe, is 3.
Yeah. So, Matt, I mean, especially the other thing I go to here is when you think about like what the average length of a career, especially for NFL, NBA might be a little bit different, but what the expected length of a career is, and now you're taking 2 years off of that. Because I know you'd say, well, 18-year-olds aren't ready to play in the NFL, but here's the deal, Matt. If this guy, you're seeing who's a great recruit right now that's young, who's like the number 1 sophomore, and let's say Spencer Lee's a sophomore, Matt, right?
Yep.
And he's getting ready. And I know. Listen, I know if I'm the Oakland Raiders and I purchase Spencer Lee, I know he is not going to start the first 2 years because you got to be a little more mature to be in the NFL. Whatever. But at the end of the day, I know that's going to be the guy. That's going to be the guy, and I need to get him. So whether he's going to be on my field or not, I need to go pay for him. And so you're taking 2 years or possibly more off of these guys' earning ability, and that's what I have the biggest issue with.
And it's bigger than that, Ben, because most of these athletes, when they complete their one or 2 years of obligation at the collegiate level to enter the pros, when they, based on the CBAs with these professional leagues, when these guys enter into their rookie contracts, even their rookie contracts are regulated. So they can't really earn money.
Really? They are?
5th year. Yeah.
My, what, 5th year? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
So a lot of these guys, there's restrictions on based upon your where you're drafted. Your draft determines the level.
Now you're making me more mad, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually adding to your argument. So not only are they restricted in their earnings for 2 years by saying they're relegated to competing in college, then they enter the professional ranks, and their first rookie contract is there's minimums and maximums that these guys can earn in their first contract. Okay. So these guys are actually playing for their second contract. And how many of these guys, if you look at the NBA and the lifespan of the NBA and the NFL athlete, you're talking under 4 years by and large. So a lot of these guys don't even get to their second contract where they can really exercise and get their full market value.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, now you made me even more mad.
Yeah.
NCAA, knock it off. Let these guys go pro already. Jeez Louise. Okay, well, you know what, Matt? We didn't even get to what we wanted to talk to. That was a fun show. We can talk about all kinds of stuff. Great debate. Okay, so when we come back next week, we'll possibly have the graphs for the freestyle scoring analysis. If not, we'll talk about season previews, and we'll also be talking about who's number 1, because that is happening Saturday.
Cool. Can't wait.